The following program is being brought to you by the Farmhouse Cafe and Mind Body Spirit of Omaha.
Living in the millennium, souls be looking for a healing, and he's healing them, filling some of them with his spirit.
My name is Robin Hesselgesser, and this is Hesselgesser on Purpose. This is where I would normally tell you how excited I am to have our guests this evening and introduce them. However, tonight the tables have turned, and I'm the guest. So when we come back, you'll meet my daughter Adrianne and my producer Vincent Alston. Welcome back to Hesselgesser on Purpose. Thank you for joining us this evening. Well, this might be a little interesting. I'd like to introduce you to my beautiful and talented daughter Adrianne and my producer Vincent Alston. I don't know how this is going to go. Normally I got nothing. So
that's right, and I've been looking forward to this one. Okay, so
no. Why are we doing this?
Well, because I think that people want an opportunity to get to know who you are. You know, they see bits, they see pieces of you as you're interviewing other guests on the show. But we're about 10, 11 weeks in now, and I thought it would be quite interesting if they understood a little bit about who you are. So we get started. As the audience may or may not know, actually, this is your beautiful daughter, Adrianne.
She is.
And you are not only a mother, a designer. You've been in corporate America. You have started, I think, 3 businesses as well, and you are a relationship coach on top of a talk show host. So yeah. I would say your hands are a little full. Yes?
I'm a busy girl, but okay. You know what they say, when you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Absolutely. So what exactly is a relationship coach? Define that for us.
Well, that's a good question. I think that's somebody who tries to help couples get out of their own way. You know, sometimes when we get into a relationship, we lose a little bit of ourselves. We try to be something that we're not. We try to make somebody happy. And then a little bit of time goes by. We become who we really are. Maybe we're not communicating very well. And the relationship ebbs and flows as we as individuals ebb and flow. And I try to help people get better communication skills, understand themselves better, and just interact better within a relationship.
Well, what would you say it is that defines a good relationship? Because for many people, they may not even know what that means. Obviously, there's give, there's take, there's compromise, and all the like. But when it's too much in terms of compromise, what would you say defines a good relationship?
Well, the thing is that, you know, a relationship is defined by those 2 people, you know, and oftentimes we see couples and we have a perspective on what we think that couple is. You know, oh, they must be happy, or, you know, they've got the house and the car and the kids and the activities, and they look really happy. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. The only 2 people that really understand what a relationship is and how it should be defined are the 2 people in it. I just help them understand what that might be.
You mentioned communication, and that's sort of a big one for most people, with the communication and lack thereof, and you may be able to speak to this as a younger person.
As a communications major? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But what,
maybe, yeah.
You know, what is it that defines good communication? What does that mean? Because for men that might mean one thing, and for women that means something else. So help us understand what that means, and feel free to jump in anytime.
Yeah, we all know that men are linear thinkers.
Logical.
Linear thinkers. Women are more circular. It may take us longer. You know, the thing about
So you circle the runway a while before you land, is what you're saying.
The thing about, I think the biggest difference is a woman sometimes has to talk to even figure out what she's trying to say. She may have to go through the process. A man has to understand that he needs to give her a little bit of room and help draw that out, to create a safe environment where she can do that. A man, on the other hand, is pretty linear. You know, it doesn't get too, it's like shopping. If you're gonna go into a store and shop, you probably know exactly what you want, you know, what size, what color. You're not gonna be too fussy about it. You're not gonna consider whether it makes you look fat, although maybe you should, but we won't go there. And you're gonna go right to the rack, you're gonna buy it, and in 12 minutes you're in and out of the store. A woman, when she pulls up, may not even really know what she's going to get or even know what she wants. So she's going to travel around the store and she's going to pick up certain things and she's going to wonder about it and think about it and make a, you know, a run around again. And then she's going to pick something out, maybe. She might leave the store with absolutely nothing. So communications are, you know, and the big one for me is communications are easy when everything is going well. But what if you have a disagreement? What if you have a different opinion? What if you have different philosophies? What if I was raised to believe one thing and you were raised to believe another, and we all have our different perspectives and beliefs? So how do you merge those two and create an environment that works for both of you?
What do you think about that? I mean, is it different, you know, as a younger person dating today? Have you found that men are more or less equipped in the communication area? Or?
I think more equipped. I think that the generation before us has done a really good job of emphasizing how important communication is, because they've seen what can happen when it's not done well. So I really do think that we've heard that from a lot of people that have helped guide us, whether it be professors, parents, you know, grandparents even. Mm-hmm. But you know, the biggest part of communication as a couple at least has to be not just thinking about yourself. It has to be truly listening to what the other person has to say, trying to understand, and really get as good of an idea as you can about what they need from the conversation as well, not just what you're trying to get across.
You know, she makes an interesting point. I probably taught her that through what not to do.
No, that's not true. That's very sweet. That's not true.
Because in a previous
wait, how so? When you say that's not true, what do you mean by that?
She was one of the key players in my upbringing and how important communication is. Huge. Not
so
even
she's
not
being
even
a little
just
modest.
Yes, she's
right
being
now.
way too modest.
Well, I appreciate
she also was
that.
huge in communication in our relationship too, not just me being an observer of her in a relationship and the communication there.
Well, I tried to be, but I can tell you from experience that in previous relationships, when there was a something going on, you know, all I was thinking in my head was what I was going to say while I was pretending to listen to him. Right. You know, I was more worried about being right and getting my viewpoint across, rather than really listening and understanding what he was trying to tell me. And I think that is huge. It was easier to do that with my child because she did and does mean everything to me, and because I wanted her to be able to know me, but I also wanted her to know herself, and I wanted her to know that she was valued and judged. And even though I made a litany of mistakes, I at least wanted her to know that. So it was easier for me to do that with her because it was safer, you know, and there was a protective thing, a maternal thing that kicked in that you don't have in a relationship. So I had to learn how to do that in a relationship with a man.
So, well, I want to sidetrack just for a moment here while we have you here, because obviously I've observed that you guys have a very, very healthy relationship between a mother and daughter. In fact, it's probably one that a lot of parents envy in their children. How did you arrive at that? Was that always the case, or was that a process for you guys as well?
I think our relationship has grown in many stages. I have a lot of comfort in the fact that my mom knows me as an adult, and that is huge. You know, I know it's a cliche that, oh, my mom's my best friend, you know, but she truly has gotten to know me as an adult, and I've gotten to know her as an adult, and we communicate constantly about the serious stuff and the light stuff. You know, we know how to have fun. We know, you know, when we've maybe had too much of each other or not enough, or, you know, we constantly try to figure out what the other person needs and do what we can to help them get there and know that it'll be returned.
Was there a time that you guys ever sort of missed each other, you know, in terms of communication? And if so, because I think it might be valuable for an audience, for a mother and daughter who might be having struggles right now, how did you get beyond that? Because sometimes bitterness, resentment, and that kind of thing sort of embeds itself, and it's hard to get around. If you ever had that issue, how did you guys bridge that divide?
I think probably the hardest time in our relationship was probably when I first moved off to college. And I think that, you know, yet again was because there was that huge transformation between mother-daughter, and then I am becoming an adult. I'm becoming my own person. I'm making my own decisions without you there, essentially. And, you know, we were spending less time together, and I don't know, it was a tough kind of transformation for us, I think, and just trying to find our way. But I think that we got to the point where we just had truly open communication, and, you know, if we had any tough conversations to have, you know, we eventually had them, and we're better for it.
I definitely agree with that. I think there are times, especially maybe with a mother and daughter, where college time or whatever that age is seems to happen, where, you know, a woman has to transition her thought process, and she's not a child anymore. You know, she gets to make her own mistakes. You hope that she doesn't make yours, as in mine, but trying to feel what that looks like, you know, because you're not prepared for that. You know, you're just not. But if I'm to be honest, and Adrianne might, because I guess it's my responsibility maybe to share, but I think the toughest time in our relationship was because she, as an adult or as a young adult, you know, there comes a time too when you realize that your parent is human. And they
were young once.
Well, no, they're human, and that's hard. You see them as a human being, making mistakes, doing dumb things, not living up to what, you know, you looked up as a little person and said, you know,
Superwoman,
yeah,
Superman.
Yes, exactly.
And, you know, I had an affair, and Adrianne, you know, was old enough to see what it did to me, see what it did to him, see what it did to her. You know, she saw the lies, she saw the deception, and she felt every moment of it. So coming out of that, you know, was tough. I mean, there comes a point where I had to, you know, ask her for her forgiveness, and you know, we just had to move on, you know. But that was, I think, you know, and it all kind of came at once, you know. So you know, there were things that contributed to that, but I think that was our toughest time. But I will tell you that she has been, not, you know, I don't know how to say. You know, I think as a parent, you know, we want our children to love us. We want our children to respect us. We want our children. But I think that the best gift that Adrianne has given me is that she loves me and forgives me in spite of knowing exactly who I am and what I've done. You know, the mistakes that I've made.
Yeah.
So when I do relationship coaching or try to, you know, help other people, I tell people, you and I were talking about this earlier today, every person makes mistakes. You know, every person is hypocritical to some extent in their own lives, you know. But it's the fact that you get up every day and you try to do your best, and you have the best of intentions, and you know, the obstacles or the challenges or you know, some things we bring on ourselves and some things happen to us. And either way that goes, you just fight through it, you know, with faith and trust and doing the very best that you can.
You've written a book called My Affair Lady, and there's a subtitle there that I don't really feel comfortable saying on the air, but we want to talk about this a little bit. But well, see, that's what she does.
Right.
You know, yeah. But let's drill down into that a little bit before we get to the book. What's that like when you come sort of face to face with your mom's humanity, if you will?
What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, when you have that moment that you realize your mom is human too, and you know, and she's had the affair, and maybe, you know, the idealized version you have of her might be shattered a little bit. You know, what does that? What's that moment like for you, and how do you get through that? How do you transcend that and get to the next level in your relationship?
Oh. As far as how did we get past it, I think that time was probably the biggest thing. You know, you can't expect someone to just, you know, make the transitions quickly and move on and deal with it. And, you know, I mean, it took some time. But you know, it's hard. And obviously, you know, everyone goes through it and is going to go through it at some point. It's hard. I think just the toughest part was just, you know, the change in communication, just, you know, how that was going to change, and you know, it had changed very quickly, and I didn't necessarily like that either. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where once you're in a situation you don't like and you don't know how to correct, you kind of backpedal. So it was just tough there for a while. But
to Adrianne's credit, I think one of the things that she learned to do is, you know, we had this thing when she was growing up, because I was tough on her. There's probably no question or denying that. I was tough on her. I was a single parent for a long time, and I was tough on her. Probably had high expectations. But we came up with something when she was, I don't remember how old you were, but she was scared of me, and there's a healthy fear that you have for your parent, and then there's an unhealthy fear. And I didn't want her to have an unhealthy fear, because if you have an unhealthy fear, then you can't talk to your, you know, parent about something that you've done that you need help with, or whatever the case may be. So we had a thing, we had a code word, and it was fearful. So if she was scared to talk to me about something, she would say that, and that would trigger something in me to go, okay. You know, and then I would try my best to make it okay for her. Mm-hmm. So, and that worked for us.
That's very interesting. So, okay, so, you know, for the other mother-daughters, father-sons that might be experiencing some of that angst in that communication channel, was it an understanding that when she said that word, that you would accept it as that no matter what the moment was? In other words, if it was a heated discussion or whatever the case may be, that everybody would then pause and sort of then try and create the environment where you could have that healthy discussion moving forward?
Yes.
I think regardless of
breathe.
Yeah, I think regardless of the relationship.
Things might be ahead.
Yeah, whether it's an intimate relationship or a parent-child relationship, you know, we're in that relationship for a reason, and we care about that other person. But let's face it, we also care about ourselves. You know, nobody enjoys being vulnerable to the extent that the imperfections just flood out. You know, but I wanted to understand her. I wanted to make a safe environment for her to the extent possible, whatever that might be. So when she said that word, that was my code word, that it was hard for her. And then it was, you know, it was time to be a parent. And I listened, and, you know, I didn't lose my temper.
How difficult was that for you?
It was really hard in the beginning. But, and then to her credit, as an adult, she has been able to say some things that I didn't want to hear and that were tough for me to hear. But it has made our relationship so strong, because I've accepted that as her truth, whether I agreed with it or not. That's her truth, and she's entitled to that. And we've had many times where we've sat across one another, bawling, and hugging at the end because we've gotten it out. And so I can sit here
and realize how special of a relationship this is.
Yeah. So I can sit here and tell you and you and you that there's no cancer down in there. There's no pus. You know, it's out. You know, everybody wants to experience the purest of love that they can.
Absolutely.
And I have that for her. You know, I give that to her, and there's no conditions, there's no hidden agenda, there's no resentment, there's no anger, there's no anything. It's just pure love.
When you reach those, there's a thing they call an inflection point, where basically it's a critical moment where you could go either way. And not to harp on the affair, but to me, I hear inflection point. At that moment, that precise moment when that happens, and there's this wall between you, how do you bridge that? Who made the decision that we need to sit down and talk about this? And were you receptive of that? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, when that happens, this can happen. A wall can go up.
Right.
Did you feel that? And if so, how'd you deal with that?
Absolutely. There were times when I was ready to talk and she wasn't, and she was ready to talk and I wasn't, or neither one of us knew how at the time or whatnot. And that's just where time came into play. And eventually, we both got to the point where we were where we needed to be in our own minds to have the tough conversations. And yeah.
Listen, I think it was incumbent upon me, not just as a mother, but you know, we don't take enough responsibility in this world. You know, we just don't. And it's hard to say I screwed up. It's hard to say I hurt somebody, I made a mistake, I didn't do that right. You know, like I said, it's one thing to have people do something to you, but I made choices that were not good for me, and they affected other people.
Right. And oftentimes, that's the important thing, isn't it? That the person wants to feel like you've heard them and that you've acknowledged whatever pain they're in, because whatever that is, it's theirs. And however they feel about it is how they feel about it. Would you say that that's a big part of the communication, that the other person needs to feel like they've been heard and acknowledged? Oh,
absolutely. You know, it's not important whether you agree. It's just, I think you can understand somebody without having to relate to them. I mean, I can't relate to being black, but I can understand when you tell me the stories of what that might have been like, you know, in your circumstances. I can understand that, I can empathize that, but I can't necessarily relate to it because clearly I'm not black.
No.
But it's not about, you know, being right. It's not about being able to relate necessarily. It's just about being able to listen and understand.
Okay, we have about 4 minutes left.
He's being producer right now.
But what do you tell couples? The couple sits down in front of you. What's the first thing you want to tell them? How do they get back on track? They've fallen off the rails. What do you tell them to help them get back on track as a couple? You
know, I tell her to go out and buy something at Victoria's Secret, page 66, wear it, surprise him, have more sex, and I tell him to create an environment where she wants to have more sex. That's where you start.
Okay, now how does he do that? Because there's a lot of guys out, I'm trying to help you out here.
I'm used to it.
There's a lot of guys out there that want to know how to create that environment where that woman is going to feel like she wants to be intimate with him. What does he say? What does he do? Is it the roses? Is it poetry? Is it candy? Is it a lap dance? What is it? Please tell.
I think everybody wants the same thing out of a relationship. Do you know what that is? You know what that is? It's you know, people say, oh, I want to be happy. What does that mean? I think what we want in a relationship is, I'll speak for myself. I want to feel a certain way about myself when I'm with someone. So how do you reverse engineer that? Mm-hmm. Well, number one, I have to look at myself first. I really do. I can't expect the man in my life to give me everything that I need or want. Can't be done. Mm-hmm. I'm setting myself up for failure if I have that philosophy. So there's that. But then there's honoring, you know, men, I know it sounds like, you know, I'm June Cleaver and I've got the pearls on, but men need and want to feel honored. They need to feel like,
absolutely,
regardless of anything else, that a woman looks at him a certain way. And a man, I think the most valuable thing for a woman is a woman needs to be understood. She wants to be understood. She wants to be accepted and understood. You know, it might not be roses. It might be jelly beans. It might be a little, I don't know, you know, but he needs to figure that out.
The book is called My Fair Lady. You've also written a couple of other books, a sales book that mm-hmm. people can find if they do a search online, and mm-hmm. also something called Plucking Petals, which deals with the way that other women treat each other. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because women can be kind of...
Well, being that it's your show, actually, I want to thank you for allowing us to do that. And now you get to kind of close your show, so I'm going to be quiet here.
Well, gee, let's mark this moment in time. Oh, okay. Well, the purpose of this show is to really reach out to all of you and to give you insight so that you can get up every day and live your life on purpose. That's really what we're all about. We're all trying to do the same thing in life. So I hope that you've enjoyed this evening. I haven't, but I appreciate, I'm just teasing. I appreciate Adrianne and Vincent being with me. I truly am honored that we all have the kind of relationship that we can get together on a couch and have this conversation. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Another day living in the millennium. Souls be looking for a healing and he's healing them. Filling some of them with his spirit.
This program has been brought to you by the Farmhouse Cafe and Mind, Body, Spirit of Omaha.